It's 6:30, so yeah. So welcome. My name is Cameron Reed. I am the Environmental Program Specialist with the City of Shoreline. And thank you all for coming, for being here, in quotes, on a Wednesday evening, sharing your time with us. And a big thank you to Brooke. Brooke is a Waste Zero Specialist with Recology King County. And we're super excited to have her here. She's done a lot of work all over the county on waste reduction and recycling, and has a great presentation for us all. So before I turn it over, I just have a couple of sort of Zoom ground rules instructions. This is the webinar, so unfortunately, you know, we can't see everybody's smiling, shining faces, but just know that we're happy you're here. And I just want to orient you at the bottom of your screen. If you're new to Zoom, there's a little Q&A button. And so that is what we'll be using. There's not a chat box, there's just this Q&A button. So please use that button to submit questions as we're going along here tonight. And then we're going to set aside some time to address them at the end of the presentation, or maybe at a couple points in between. And there's also a button for you can like a little thumbs up on a question if you have the same question, and that way we can kind of keep track of the most, things that common questions people are having. I think that's all. I don't see anybody on the phone, so I won't go over the phone instructions, but yeah, just real quick. Yeah, so we are recording this, and I'll send out a follow-up email with the recording and any links to resources that we mentioned here, as well as Brooke's contact information if you have follow-up questions. And lastly, yeah, so the City of Shoreline, obviously recycling has a ton of environmental benefits. And we are part of sort of the regional King County effort and initiative to achieve zero waste of resources by 2030. And so I'll just give you the little stat that currently about 70% of what's disposed of in the county, not counting Seattle, could have been recycled or composted instead. So it's not actually even trash. There's materials that have better uses for. But there's a big importance on actually recycling right, making sure your recyclables are properly prepared. So with that, I'll let Brooke take it from here. So thank you, Brooke, and thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Cameron. All right, I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Okay. All right. So again, my name is Brooke, and I work for Recology King County as a Waste Zero Specialist. And today I'm going to be presenting on what material goes in each 3 of our streams. So what goes in the recycling, what goes into the compost, and what goes into the garbage. I'm also going to talk a little bit about what happens after the material is picked up by Recology. But first, I would like to start with who Recology is, because I'm sure there's 1 or 2 of you who might not know exactly what we do or who we are. So Recology is the City of Shoreline's local garbage, recycle, and compost collection hauler. We pick up garbage, recycling, and compost from single-family homes, restaurants, condos, apartments, grocery stores, hotels, hospitals, schools, pretty much everywhere. And we are a West Coast-based company. So our headquarters are located down in San Francisco, California, and we haul material all the way from Northern California through Oregon and up into Washington. But within King County itself, we serve about 10 different communities. We are a little bit different from other companies within the waste industry, and that is because we have a mission of a world without waste. So take a second to think about what a world without waste would look like, or what that means to you. So the way that Recology strives for this world without waste is by investing in recycling and composting technologies, and by educating the communities in which we serve. So like this presentation. We also right now are an essential service, so I encourage you, if you see your recycled garbage or compost driver, give them a wave from your window, say hello, because they're out there doing hard work, and we all appreciate them. So I'm going to jump right into what is the presentation. So our world is covered in plastic. I'd like everyone to think about how many times a day you touch something that is made of plastic. So this could be your toothbrush, it could be the container that your strawberries come in, or the top to your plastic, or the top to your coffee cup. Plastic is everywhere. So take, for example, this orange. It has a perfectly natural protective barrier, yet we go so far as to remove that natural protective barrier and place it in a plastic container. But people are starting to realize the extent to which our world is covered in plastic. Right now, it is even more important than ever to make sure we are disposing of our waste correctly because of all the single-use plastics, face masks, latex gloves, and other forms of disposable PPE that are out there. So where does all of this plastic go? There are a lot of single-use plastics that just can't be recycled, and they do end up in our waterways and our oceans and our landfills. So let's talk about landfills. There is only so much room inside of a landfill. So in particular, the King County owns a landfill called Cedar Hills, which is located about 7 miles outside of Issaquah on the backside of Tiger Mountain. The Cedar Hills landfill currently is projected to be completely full within the next 7 to 12 years. And the county is currently trying to figure out what the next steps are in terms of the waste in our King County communities. So do we create a new landfill? Do we do waste to energy? Do we send our garbage along with the city of Seattle's down to Eastern Oregon? This is what they're debating right now, and we'll have to figure out in the next 7 to 12 years. So what can we do to minimize the material that ends up in the landfill? Well, we can recycle. So there are 5 materials that can be recycled. So we have paper, cardboard, metal, glass, and plastic. Plastic, I think, is the most difficult to determine its recyclability because, like I said earlier, not all plastics are recyclable. Plastics that are 3D and rigid can be recycled. So a plastic water bottle, a plastic milk jug, or a plastic cup or tub can all be put into your blue recycling bin at home. But plastics that are 2D, like a plastic grocery bag or bubble wrap, cannot be recycled in your recycling bin at home. A common question that I get is, can I recycle caps to bottles or lids? Yes, you can recycle bottle caps and lids, but if you're going to recycle your bottle caps, you want to make sure that the cap is the same material as the bottle. So if you have a plastic cap in a plastic bottle, you just screw the plastic cap back on and toss the entire thing into your blue recycling bin. Just make sure that it's empty, clean, and dry before it goes into the recycling bin. But if you have a glass bottle with a metal cap, those are 2 different materials. So we don't want these 2 materials together. So put the empty, clean, and dry glass bottle into the recycling bin and toss the metal cap into the garbage. The metal cap is just unfortunately too small to be recycled on its own. So the rule of thumb that we use is if it's bigger than your fist, you can toss it into the recycling. But if it's smaller than your fist, toss it into the garbage. And the reason for this is because where all the material is sorted after it's picked up by our trucks, there are 3-inch gaps between the machinery. And so these small pieces that are smaller than our fists just fall to the ground and don't get recycled. Another common question I get is, do I need to remove labels from a soup can or from a glass jar? No, you do not need to remove labels. You don't need to remove the plastic window from your envelopes or from your junk mail. The key is to remember that all recyclables need to be empty, clean, and dry before they go into the recycling container. You might ask, well, how empty, clean, and dry do my recyclables need to be before they go into the recycling container? Now, I'm not asking that you run things through the dishwasher or even use soap, but take, for example, an empty plastic ketchup container. If you fill that ketchup container with a 1/2 inch of water, shake it up for 30 seconds, pour all the excess liquid down the sink, and then tap it 3 times on the edge of the sink, that would be empty, clean, and dry enough. So this image shows clearly the difference between clean and dirty. So the dirty image has honestly a few more bites of takeout in its containers. So what you would need to do is take a paper towel or a napkin and wipe out the excess food or eat the excess food, and then rinse the containers, and then it would be empty, clean, and dry enough, and then you could toss it into your recycling bin. Some common contaminants that we are seeing recently are textiles, food waste, liquids, yard waste, latex gloves, face masks, plastic bags, Clorox wipes, and hand sanitizer bottles that still have some hand sanitizer left in them. So all of these things in this state are not recyclable in your blue bin at home. So for the hand sanitizer bottle, you just want to make sure that you get all of that hand sanitizer out of the plastic bottle. And then the pump top is actually garbage because it's mixed material. So that plastic pump top actually has a little bit of metal inside of it. So that's plastic and metal together. And so it would have to go into the garbage. But the plastic container is recyclable as long as it's empty, clean, and dry. So does anyone know where your recycling goes after it is picked up by the Recology truck? And if you do know, or if you have a guess, either say it out loud or share it with the person that you are listening with. So your recycling goes to Recology's material recovery facility that's located down in South Seattle. At our materials recovery facility, all the recycling is sorted into paper and cardboard, plastic, glass, and metals. But the first step in the sorting process is actually taking out contamination from the sorting line. So we have employees who are hand pulling off contamination from the sorting line, and this is why it's especially important to only put recyclable material into the recycling bin, because we do have employees who are handling this, the material that shouldn't be on there, and we want to make sure that they are as safe as possible. So there are about 400 tons of recyclables that are picked up every day from all over King County, and these 400 tons of material come to our recovery center, and they are sorted into their different materials. So let's talk about composting now. So there are 3 categories of materials that can be composted. So we have food waste, yard waste, and food soiled paper. All of your eggshells, your chicken bones, your coffee grounds, banana peels can go into the compost bin. Any leaves or grass clippings or dead plants all go into the compost bin. And then any paper towels or napkins or paper plates can also go into the compost bin. But we want to make sure that your paper plates are just completely paper. So if you have a paper plate and it has a little bit of a glossy finish or coating on top, that means that there's usually a little tiny thin layer of plastic, and so that's not completely paper. So we only want items that are completely paper to be tossed into the compost bin. And if you're using your paper towel to do some sort of cleaning, you're using a little bit of bleach, we also don't want that paper towel that is contaminated with cleaning products on it into the compost bin. But if you use your paper towel to wipe your hands or wipe your face or clean up a spill of some juice or water, we do want that paper towel in the compost bin. Another item that I would like to note about that goes into the compost bin is pizza boxes. So I've never seen a clean pizza box before. They're usually cheesy and greasy, but that's perfect to go into the recycling bin. So does anyone know where your compost goes after it is picked up by the Recology truck? If you do, share with the person next to you or share out loud. So your compost goes to a commercial compost facility called Cedar Grove, and they have 2 locations. There's one up in Everett and then one down in Maple Valley. So all of your food waste, yard waste, and food soiled paper are delivered to these facilities, and they have a really quick turnaround. So all this food waste, yard waste, food soiled paper gets turned into compost within 6 to 8 weeks of arriving at the facility. So it's very, very fast. It's a really cool process. And this compost is then used on fields for agriculture. It's used in parks. It's used on a lot of roadway projects, and it's also sold in a lot of our local hardware or landscaping shops. So you and I can both go and buy a bag of Cedar Grove compost and then use it in our backyard, in our flower beds, and it's very nutrient rich with all of our food scraps and yard waste and food soiled paper that's been broken down and created into this really great, rich compost.
Hey, Brooke, real quick, just wanted to jump in. We had a couple questions related to compost.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we could just go back one slide. And we'll just answer a couple of these while we're on the subject. Thank you all for your questions. So the first one, I think, so you stated that used pizza boxes go into the recycling, but I'm pretty sure you meant compost. Is that correct?
Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Used pizza boxes go into the compost.
Awesome. Thank you guys for catching that. Another one, this is a great question. This is gross, but used Kleenex?
Yeah, so used Kleenex would go into the garbage just because we want to make sure that everyone is safe, and there are also employees who do pull out contamination at the compost facility. So if you use it to blow your nose or any other, the Kleenex has any other bodily fluids on it, please put that into the garbage bin.
Awesome.
Great question.
So pizza boxes, compost, Kleenexes,
box.
garbage.
Yes.
Awesome. One other question, and this is kind of talking about I think the rice sort of Asian food takeout container from the clean dirty slide.
Yeah. We can go that.
Yeah. So it looks like that square takeout box could go in the compost is the question.
Yes, so if it's just completely paper, it can go into the compost, but sometimes we do see these takeout containers where they do have a glossy coating on it. So just make sure once it is empty, clean, and dry, or before to check to see if it has that glossy coating. And if it does have that glossy coating, you don't want it into the compost bin because then it does have that little thin layer of plastic on it. That's a great question.
Awesome. And I guess just following up on that, if you are able to just rinse it out, say you're not really sure if it's completely paper, if it has that plastic, if you're able to rinse it out, then it could be recycled, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And if you're at a fast food place and there's no option to rinse out your container, then you would just have to place it in the garbage.
Yes, you're right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So thank you for those questions. Got a couple more compost ones here, so I guess you mind just taking those while we're here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. We have someone saying that they make homemade cat food, so they got some grinding up, and they have a bunch of chicken bones or bone chips, and that would be okay to go in the compost.
Yes, it would. Yes. So the reason why like eggshells and chicken bones can go into your compost bin, your green compost bin, is because at Cedar Grove, the temperature gets high enough where it's going to break down any bacteria or anything. It's going to be able to break down all those bones and eggshells. But if you do your own backyard at home composting, the temperature just doesn't get high enough. So those eggshells, the chicken bones, won't break down in your backyard composting, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Thanks, Brooke. And then I guess we can talk about this one now. So the question is around plastic, so kind of PLA. So plastic, like a cold drink cup that says, commercially compostable on it.
Yeah. So this is a really great question. It's kind of it's a confusing answer. So if you go to Taco Time or PCC and they provide you with serviceware that is compostable, it says 100% compostable on it, it says commercially compost on it, and you eat your Taco Time or you drink your coffee at PCC, you can put that compostable container into their compost bin. But if you take your coffee cup that says 100% compostable on it home, we do not want you to put it in your compost bin at home. And that it's very tough, and that's hard for a lot of people. It's hard for me too. But the reason for that is because we see so many different companies and groups that we use the term greenwashing. So these companies are using words like natural, 100% biodegradable, plant-based, and those words do not mean that something is compostable. So again, if you are at Taco Time, you're at PCC, and you have your meal there, you finish your taco and you have your plate, you can put that plate into the compost bin there. But if you do take out that container that says 100% compostable at your home, please put that into your garbage container.
Thanks. And is that specifically for the plastic ones? Because I'm assuming paper ones, it's a little easier to tell.
Yes, correct. Yeah, so that's specifically plastic, the plastic looking ones. And the reason why you can't put them in, those plastic ones, into your recycling is just the way that those are made. They're actually not recyclable either. So if you do take your coffee cup, your plastic looking coffee cup home that says 100% compostable, please place that into the garbage.
Okay, so it's a long answer, but thank you for that question. That's a really great question.
Yeah, that's a great one.
So you can compost it at the business establishment if it's a plastic that says commercially compostable, but we don't want that in the home compost. Okay, and I think I'll save a couple more questions here for the end, since I think we'll get onto the recycling triangle subject at the end.
All right.
So keep going.
Thanks, Cameron. So we can't talk about recycling and composting without also talking about garbage. So there are some things that just cannot be recycled or composted. So these things are your Amazon mailers, your latex gloves, disposable masks, chip bags, granola bar wrappers, plastic utensils, plastic straws, the little plastic K-cups. So these things all need to go into your garbage bin. And now I do have plastic bags and styrofoam on this slide. And these two things are a little tricky because there are places where you can recycle these items, but if you can't make it to the grocery store or to a drop-off location, these items need to go into your garbage bin. And the plastic bags is very new. So as of January 1st, 2020, we no longer accept plastic bags and the recycling, and that's because those plastic bags, plastic film, they get caught in the machinery at our materials recovery facility, and they just they wear down the machinery, and they get caught in these spindles, and at the end of every shift we have to go up there and pull out all the plastic bags and plastic film. So a really good resource for recycling your plastic bags and plastic film is plasticfilmrecycling.org. And you go to their website, you type in your zip code, and it will give you the closest 5 or 6 places to you where you can recycle those plastic bags and plastic film. They're usually grocery stores, Target, and sometimes hardware stores as well. Styrofoam, clean styrofoam, can be recycled at the Shoreline transfer station, and it usually can be recycled at the Recology stores, which is what I would like to talk about next. So if you don't know, or if you haven't heard, Recology has 4 stores. These stores provide a site for drop-off for hard to recycle items. But unfortunately right now, these stores are closed. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what to do with these hard to recycle items right now, since the store is not a resource, because there are a lot of really great other resources out there. So for small appliances, Recology does offer pickup. So you would just call our customer service and set up a date, and then we would come out and pick up those from your house. If they're still working appliances, you can always donate them to a thrift store, or you can also drop off at the Shoreline Recycle and Transfer Station. For batteries, we also do pick up at Recology. Yet again, just give us a call. You can also fill out a form on our website too for these special item collections. I called both Bartell's and Walgreens and Shoreline today, and they are both still accepting batteries as well. It's usually at their photo or their photo center that they have these bins. And then for bikes and bike parts, you can drop off at the Shoreline transfer station as well. For any building materials, I called both Second Use and Earthwise Architectural Salvage today, and they are both open for drop-off. Earthwise, you do have to set up an appointment for drop-off, but those are 2 really good resources as well. For bulky items, you may donate to thrift stores if they're still in good use, or you can also schedule a pickup with Recology, and same with textiles and with electronics too. We do pickups of all of these items. For electronics, you can also bring like cell phones to Home Depot and Lowe's, or visit eCycle Washington. And again, it's one where you type in your zip code and it gives you the closest places to you where you're able to recycle electronics. For fluorescent light bulbs, we also offer pickup, or you can drop them off at the Shoreline transfer station. For medication and needles, please visit medicinereturn.org, or you can bring your needles to the transfer station. You just need to make sure that those needles are put in a sturdy, sealed container. And then for any latex paint, please drop off at the North Seattle Household Hazardous Waste collection site. And then for plastic bags and plastic film, like I mentioned earlier, the plasticfilmrecycling.org is your best resource to find the closest places to you, the closest grocery stores where you can drop off those items. They also have a long, extensive list of exactly the types of bags and plastic film that they accept in those bins. And you may also drop off plastic film and plastic bags at the Shoreline transfer station. Any camping propane canisters, you can schedule a pickup with Recology or drop off at the North Seattle Household Hazardous Waste collection site. For scrap metal, you can drop off at the Shoreline Recycling and Transfer Station. For styrofoam, we do pick up styrofoam as well. Like I said, you just need to give us a call, sign up on our website, and you can drop off at the transfer station, as well as Styro Recycle. It's kind of far away from Shoreline. It's located down in Kent, but they have a free drop-off location where you can, if you have a lot of styrofoam and you're down in that area, you can go and drop it off at Styro Recycle. And then last one, motor oil and cooking oil or vegetable oil. Recology will also pick this up. And then for motor oil, you can bring to O'Reilly Auto Parts or the North Seattle Household Hazardous Waste Collection site. So lastly, within this presentation, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we can all do during this time that's besides recycling and composting. So while the health and safety of all of us should, of course, remain at the top priority, there are a wide array of ways that we can continue to reduce our waste during this time. So some examples of this, which I'm sure some of you are already familiar with, are purchasing reusable masks or purchasing reusable paper towels. So this would be like you use it once and then you put it in your washing machine and you wash it. Buying hand sanitizer or cleaning products in bulk, and still using your reusable bags. So I know this has been really tough lately for a lot of people, and most places in the US have temporarily lifted their plastic shopping bag bans, but some stores will allow you to bring your own reusable bags and bag your own groceries. And if that's not permitted, you can always ask your the grocery store if they can place your items back inside of your cart or your basket. And then you can bring your cart or your basket to your vehicle and you can transfer them into your car or into your bags there. A few other thoughts and things I wanted to leave you all with while we are all at home during this time is try refusing junk mail. So I've noticed it myself. I get a lot of junk mail, and so what I've started to do is to contact companies and groups that are sending me junk mail and just getting off of their mailing list. If you do typically buy in bulk, but are unable to during this time because lots of grocery stores have closed their bulk sections, just look for items that have the least amount of packaging or are packaged in paper, not plastic. Take this time to look around your house for items that are disposable that you maybe can replace with something that is reusable. And lastly, think about what you actually need and consider your past consumptions and let go of things that you do not really use or need within your home. So now we can go to the rest of the Q&A. And I'm going to put up our all of our social media channels because we have lots of good information that flows through those as well. The little QR codes, if you hold your camera up to the QR code, it will take you directly to that page. And then otherwise, the Recology King County is just the name that we have on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Awesome. Well, we got some great questions here, so get ready, Brooke.
All right.
Maybe we're actually going to start with an easy one. So 2 items, where do they go? Well, the first one is coated paper, so like advertising postcards, really glossy. It's definitely got some plastic in there. So
Yeah.
That's the first one.
Yeah, that can still go into the recycling bin along with like a magazine that is glossy too, and that can also go into the recycling bin too.
Awesome. So coated paper is good for the recycling.
Yes.
Second question is prescription bottles and caps.
Yeah, that's a great question. So anything that is prescribed to you, we do not want in the recycling bin. So you would want to use that, I believe it's medicinereturn.org, and that will show you the places where you can drop off those prescription pill bottles. If you get like vitamins or like an iron supplement or something like that, something that's not prescribed to you, and that is empty, clean, and dry, that can go into the recycling bin.
Perfect. Yeah, I think the two medicine drop-off locations in Shoreline would be, I think there's one at the police station or City Hall, and then one at like International Health Services down in Aurora. But I will send out, and this is a good thing to mention, I'll send out these links that Brooke has mentioned to some of these different facilities, and also to a flyer that has a lot of the special items that can be recycled. They just can't go in your blue cart. So I'll send that out afterwards. So if you're furiously taking notes, don't worry. Okay, I think we'll do a couple more recycling ones. There's some big questions, and then switch back. There's a couple more composting questions. Okay. So the first one is just about that freaking triangle symbol. Is that helpful?
Yes, so this is a great question. So the triangle symbol, the recycle symbol, that does not mean that something is recyclable. So it could mean that it's made out of recycled material. So don't look at that recycle little symbol. Just make sure that the plastic is 3D, it's rigid, it's a tub, it's a cup, a jug, a bottle, and then make sure that it's empty, clean, and dry, and then toss it into your recycling bin. I will add to that too, the numbers inside of the recycle symbol also don't necessarily mean whether it's recyclable or not. Those numbers just mean the plastic polymer that item originated from. So again, just the 3D rigid plastics need to go into the recycle bin.
Okay, yeah, so that three-dimensional rule of thumb, the size, the 3-inch limit, and then yeah, kind of the shape, like those bottles and tubs and jugs. Mm-hmm. Cool. Great question, though. I know that's just causing a ton of confusion, and there's a lot of initiatives, like you might see on some of the Amazon packages. They have the how to recycle, and it will actually tell you, each part, like, is this recyclable, and kind of how to do it. So there's that's a great question, and yeah, just think about those ground rules that Brooke said, rather than just looking for the symbol.
Yes.
Okay, another kind of big picture question. About recycling. What is done with recycled material given the situation in China no longer accepting much of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard of China sword, or China not taking our recyclables anymore. And this is true. China has stopped taking any recyclable material from the United States. And the reason for that is because we were basically sending them garbage. So we were sending them shiploads of material that was recyclable, but it was contaminated with food and with liquid. It was moldy and stinky, and just really actually wasn't recyclable. So they said, no more, we're not taking basically your garbage. Recology has lots of partners in Washington, along the West Coast, throughout the United States, and in other countries too, where we have partners and we have relationships, we have vendors, and so all of your material is getting recycled. It's just not getting recycled in China anymore.
Yeah, and that's a great question, and I'll just chime in here too. Yeah, it's forced our whole region and really the whole country to start to look at our recycling system and see how reliant we were on these overseas markets, and start, it's started a lot of hard conversations on, like, we need to invest in domestic recycling infrastructure to process our own waste.
Yes.
And so, the King County is working a lot on that. We've been participating in a responsible recycling task force to try to look at how we can make, at least, on sort of a county level, make our recycling system, as local and as responsible as possible. And the same thing, there's some initiatives happening on the state level to do that as well. And I will just say we're looking at, potentially diving a little bit more into that topic, and kind of what Brooke was mentioning about just sort of the issue of plastics in general and the need to find alternatives, potentially in another webinar this fall, and maybe, you know, a documentary screening. So thank you for that question. That's a really great and timely question. And I think it just points to the need to really make sure we're recycling right and not just sort of like hoping it's recyclable or seeing that symbol and just tossing it in the bin, but really only putting things in there that you're confident are going to be made into new products.
Mm-hmm.
And then last question on recycling would be, and we kind of talked about this, but if you're at a fast food place, you have all this packaging, it has, you know, assuming lots of like food and moisture on it. There's not an easy way to clean it. What to do in that scenario?
Yeah, so if you can't rinse something out, if you can't clean it out, and there is food residue left on it, definitely throw that into the garbage because you don't want to contaminate the other things that are in that recycling bin.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so now for some fun compost questions. So we have two questions about coffee pods. One is wondering about a specific brand, one cup, and it has BPI certification. And it says commercially compostable.
Okay, so this would again go with the like the cups, the PCC, the Taco Time, that compostable serviceware that I was talking about earlier. So unfortunately, that we don't want in the compost bin at your house.
Okay, because it has a plastic, compostable plastic.
Yeah.
So it is, even though it's been certified, it is technically compostable. It's just a problem with where the stream is coming from.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And then there's, yes, K-cups, I guess that also say that. So the same thing would apply there. So those at your house, those would need to go into the garbage. But if you're at an office building and you have compost, then they can be composted.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, okay, so let's see. I've had these exact same questions. There's one about cat litter going in the garbage, regardless of the type of litter. For instance, you know, there's a lot of products made out of like grass or corn or walnut shells.
Yeah. Yeah, so unfortunately, any cat litter or pet waste just has to go into the garbage bin.
For sure. And we're talking about the curbside cart. So yes. If you decide to try to compost that, I have no idea. I'm not recommending that. Theoretically, it may be possible.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to test it out in your own backyard, be my guest. But in your Recology bin at your house, we do not want any pet waste, cat litter, any of that. Yeah.
And I will just chime in to say that animal waste is a huge problem in shoreline, and it gets in the waterways. So definitely anything with the actual feces you would want to bag and put in put with your litter, bag it and put it in the trash.
Yeah. Any of your garbage, make sure that it's bagged before you toss it in there.
And then along the same lines, there are diaper companies. I literally was just having this conversation with my sister-in-law. There are diaper companies that claim to be compostable, but I don't believe that human waste can go into the compost. Are these worth using if cloth diapers aren't an option?
Yeah, so you're correct. Human waste cannot go into the compost bin. So I guess it would be up to you whether you want to buy the compost ones, but they have to go into the garbage. Yeah.
Great. And let's see. Let's see. What about paper from, shredded paper? Great question.
Yeah.
And from home shredders specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is a new change as well, along with the plastic bags as of January 1st, 2020. All shredded paper needs to go into the garbage bin. And this is because we have just seen so much contamination at Cedar Grove. because lots of people like to shred their junk mail, which has like the little plastic windows or credit cards that get shredded up in there. And there's just so much of that that contamination, those plastic little bits at Cedar Grove. So we no longer accept shredded paper in the compost bin, and then it's not accepted in the recycling bin because it basically just acts like confetti. It doesn't really fit that the bigger than your fist rule. It just explodes at the materials recovery facility and like all throughout the trucks. So unfortunately, shredded paper is garbage. But if you do have your own back home or backyard composting, and you want to put your shredded paper, because you know it's only shredded paper, into your own personal backyard composting, that is totally an option.
Cool. And backyard compost, yeah, and you'd want to make sure it wasn't the glossy paper too.
Yes, yeah. So no glossy paper, no plastic windows from envelopes, and no credit cards. You want to just make sure it's completely paper if you're doing that in your backyard.
So it sounds like we need an experimental home composting webinar next.
Yeah, no,
we'll find somebody to
that would be very fun.
Thank you for those questions. A couple more here we got time for. Okay, a couple questions about, well, let's do this easy one first. Charcoal dust from the barbecue, and I would add like wood ashes if you have a wood burning stove from that.
Yeah, the garbage, but make sure that they are not like hot or anything.
Right.
Sure they're completely cool, and then bag them up and put them into the garbage.
And do you know, Brooke, I remember hearing the reason for that, but I forget what it was, that they couldn't be composted.
Yeah, you know, I don't off the top of my head, but I can get back to you, and if you want to add that to the email,
cool.
You can do that.
I remember, I've heard it and I should remember it. Okay, and then we have a couple questions that came in via email that I wanted to get to as well. So one was for the plastic wrap recycling, what about like sort of food packages? So like a ramen bag or something like the plastic wrap around like a meat item.
Yeah, so that is all garbage. So there's a very specific list on plasticfilmrecycling.org that tells you what you can bring and what's accepted in those bins. But any like Top Ramen little plastic bags like that, granola bar wrappers are kind of in the same category, or like a chip bag. All of that is garbage. It's not accepted at the grocery store drop-off locations.
Cool. And then let me see if I can understand this question. So they're asking a half full tub of olive oil left over from a Costco item. What's the best way to dispose of this? So it is kind of like a yogurt container tub, and it has, you know, it's got some extra oil in it. What does she do with it?
Yeah, well, if you can use it, use all the excess oil. What I do with mine personally is I've had like those big ones from Costco that have like the little caps, and I just tip it upside down and like leave it overnight, and then use that extra oil that's like in the cap like the next day whenever I'm cooking, and then I do the same. I fill it with like a half an inch of water and shake it up as best as I can, and pour all of that excess liquid down the sink, tap it 3 times, and then put it into my recycling. You're not going to be able to get all of that oil out, right? But oil is a little bit different than like a dairy product. So that oil is not going, if there's a few drops of oil left and it gets on a piece of paper, that's very different than if you have some yogurt and that yogurt gets on the paper, and that yogurt is gonna create mold and make a smelly mess.
Right, gotcha. And I guess just looking, she sent a photo too, but yeah, I think she could just, you know, if she wasn't gonna use the oil, you could put it in your compost.
Yeah.
And then just wipe it out with a paper towel, and then, you know, rinse it out like Brooke described, and then it's good to replace the lid and put it in the recycling.
Yes.
So a couple more questions about the dump, and I can just answer these if you like. So let me just find them here. So someone who lives in Hawaii just mentions that they have a clean system for burning garbage and generating electricity, and is that being considered? So that is actively being considered at, it's one of the options we're looking at for as the county solid waste system for once that landfill closes in 7 to 12 years. And currently, I will say it's pretty controversial because, you know, obviously when you're burning things, you create emissions. Yeah, so it's one of the options they're looking at it, but trying to just, you know, there's a lot of factors that would go into making that decision. It'd be expensive to build another facility. And then I will say we also, so when stuff is decomposing in the landfill, which it doesn't do very well because it doesn't have air, so it takes a long time to decompose, and it produces methane, which is a powerful greenhouse gas. But the King County landfill actually is capped, and they capture it from the closed sections. They capture the methane, and they do actually produce electricity. It gets pumped back into the PSE pipeline. They convert it to a gas. So kind of, you know, we're kind of doing something similar along those lines, and but sort of, you know, I would say from my perspective, we're really trying to focus on not creating so much waste in the first place. And then obviously, you know, dealing with it, finding the highest use for materials. And then, you know, at last resort, we would want to do something like waste to energy with what's left. And another great, oh, and she had a question about a tour as well. Or this participant had a question about a tour to trash, where you tour different facilities. And I would just say normally Recology offers tours of their facility, but, you know, with COVID, we haven't been doing a lot of tours. You can also tour the Brightwater facility, which is the wastewater treatment plant. And I don't know if the landfill does regular tours at all.
Yeah, I'm not positive if they do just public tours, but you could, or I could reach out to them and see if that's an option. If you are interested in doing a Recology tour, like Cameron said, right now we're not running them, but if you want to send me an email, then I can put you on our list, and when we do start those tours again, I'd be happy to reach out and set one up for you.
And I just say, I did the tour a year or two ago, and it was super informative and just, yeah, really eye-opening to see, oh, this is why this, you know, recycling thing that maybe feels like a random rule, once you see the whole process, it really helps you give it an appreciation for, yeah, just the challenge of dealing with all these different types of materials coming in one stream. A couple other quick questions, and then we might wrap up. So most Amazon envelopes are garbage, correct?
Yes. So the tan ones, the yellow ones that are paper on the outside that have the plastic bubble wrap on the inside, that's just a mixed material. So that would be garbage. And then the white and blue ones, those are just completely plastic. And although they do have their little recycling symbol on there, they aren't recyclable in your blue Recology bin.
So that would fit the plastic wrap. It's not, yeah. It's not, yeah, three-dimensional. And so that can go at one of those plastic bag collection sites we talked about, but it can't be recycled in your blue Recology card.
Yes.
And then Post-it notes.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's a hard one. So they are almost as big as your fist, or they are as big as your fist. So I would put them in the recycling bin. Yes.
Okay. I guess it depends on which size you're going with. The small ones are probably just too small.
Well, I'm thinking of the medium-sized ones.
Right.
They're medium-sized or bigger. Put them in your
Right.
recycling bin. If they're the small, tiny little ones, or they're like the little plastic ones you can use for like tabs, those
Right.
ones are garbage.
Awesome. And anything going into the garbage should be bagged first?
Yes. So that just helps protect our drivers and anyone else that's in the process of transporting the garbage. So we just want to make sure that nothing's going to like fly out from your garbage bin and
Right.
potentially harm or hurt our driver.
Right. Especially because when they lift the thing up too, if it was just unbagged, you would get just like kitty litter and ashes and everything.
Exactly.
Cool. And then someone is asking that we repeat the fist rule.
Yeah, of course. So if you have a recyclable item, you have something that's cardboard, paper, plastic, metal, or glass, as long as it's bigger than your fist, it's empty, clean, and dry, you can put that into the recycling bin. But if it's smaller than your fist, it's just going to fall through the cracks in our machinery at our recycling facility. So just toss that into your garbage bin.
Cool. Yeah. So it's a 3-inch screen, I guess, is the first.
Yeah, we say the fist because, I mean, I'm personally not going to get out my ruler to measure 3 inches.
Totally.
But yeah, that's the way is there's those 3-inch gaps in our machinery. So if it's smaller than 3 inches, it's just going to fall right through.
Gotcha. Cool. So those, and then it looks like Shannon has a question about worm bin composting. I think that's a great idea, Shannon, to encourage more people to do home composting. And it does sound like, just from a lot of the questions, that we should look at, the city will look at, incorporating that to some of our programming in the future. Because yeah, that's a great idea. It saves, even having to put it in the bin in the first place. But there are limitations, on what you can compost at home as opposed to what a facility like Cedar Grove can handle. It's just a bigger scale, bigger piles. They get a lot hotter, breaks down faster. So any last questions from folks? Any last comments from Brooke?
Just do your best to recycle and compost and reduce and reuse as much as you can. We're all in it together, and we're all I want to thank everybody too for being here tonight and asking such great questions too. And my email will get sent out with the recording of this, so please feel free to, if you do think of a question later tonight or tomorrow or whenever, feel free to send me an email or give me a call, because I'm here to answer all of your questions or at least help you figure out how to answer them.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Brooke. Really appreciate you being here and taking all of our questions. And thank you all for coming, and thanks, for the awesome questions and for your interest